Guys, on Tuesday afternoon, after 10 and a half hours of deliberation, the jury in the Derek Chauvin trial returned their verdict. They found the former Minneapolis police officer guilty on all counts in the murder of George Floyd. Chauvin showed no real emotion upon hearing the verdict and was immediately taken into custody and led away from the courtroom in handcuffs. Upon hearing the verdict, people gathered outside the courthouse in what is now known as George Floyd Square. People were overcome with emotion. So many people were cheering, dancing, while others just simply broke down in tears. Chauvin is scheduled to actually be sentenced in 8 weeks, and he faces up to 75 years in prison as a convicted murderer. Ladies, I just want to know, what was your reaction in the moment to hearing the verdict, and if you view it as justice being served? Because there's a lot of conversation of what justice means surrounding this circumstance.
Yeah. I was literally pacing back and forth in front of my TV waiting for them to, to tell us what the verdict was. And I realized, I'm like, why am I pacing? Why am I so anxious? And it's because we normally don't get justice. We normally are let down. And I felt like once I heard, murder for each verdict, I just, guilty. I just felt like I burst into tears. I couldn't believe it, because so many times police officers don't go to jail for these kind of crimes.
Yeah.
And finally, accountability. We're finally feeling like Black lives do matter. George Floyd's life does matter. And for me, it was just, it's a new day. It's a new day. There's a lot more to do. There's a lot more work, but I just felt like finally accountability.
So true, Marcel.
I hope that people realize that voting does matter. And ladies, we've been pushing voting through the elections. We've been pushing it. But I just want to show the example of how voting mattered in this case. When George Floyd passed, it was the Minnesota AG that took over the case, which was Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, a former congressman, and then he became the Minnesota AG. He was voted in. This is an example of when we say voting in your interests. And because there are a lot of people, it's like, oh, that's because he was Black. He put, no. Because we have a Black AG over there for Kentucky.
For Breonna Taylor.
For Breonna Taylor. So all skin folk ain't kin folk. I'm just going to say that. And when we talk about identity politics, it doesn't mean because somebody is Black that they're going to do things in favor just because something is Black.
Exactly.
I want to make that. The second point that I want to make, and I want to get the other ladies' reaction, is that we need to pass this George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. For too long, Black people, and I grew up in the projects, ladies, I have seen the police come and kill my brothers and sisters, and I try to act hard on TV, and I try to act like I'm so tough, but I'm scared. When I get stopped by the police, I'm scared. Yeah. As old as I am, I still get scared because I've seen what can happen. So this George Floyd Justice in Policing Act is a bill that would require law enforcement to undergo training on racial bias, discriminatory profiling. It would ban the no-knock warrants. That's what happened with Breonna Taylor. It would also ban chokeholds. So right now, this bill is on the floor of the Senate, and we're trying to get it passed.
Yeah, we need this.
So basically, I just want to say that right now, this police reform justice bill, the George Floyd Act, is on the floor, and we need to try to get it passed.
So we got 3 years to try to make this happen.
We have to. And I want to applaud because, President Biden and Kamala Harris and Jill Biden spoke to the family of George Floyd. This win was for them. But we still have, I agree with you, I agree. We have work to do. Garcelle, I'm sorry. I'm just so emotional. I've been up all night. I've been talking to people about this verdict. We've been waiting for so long for some justice. Since Emmett Till, our Black men should be able to walk the streets and be safe. everybody that makes a mistake, all we're asking for is equality and justice.
That's right.
When the police come, that's all we're asking. And as this was happening, a 15-year-old girl was shot in Columbus, Ohio, just as the verdict was taking place. So now we got to go through this all over again. And it's because of the way the police is happening. Policing needs to be reformed. I'm sorry, Jeannie, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're speaking the heart of what so many of us feel.
What you're feeling, I think, is a sentiment of millions of us are feeling, and I'm numb because I don't know how to feel. First of all, obviously, I will never be able to feel the pain and the just how weary any person who is Black is feeling today. Like, I will never understand that. All I can do is just sit here and try to understand what I'm supposed to, what we can do, people of color can do to stand in solidarity, to make the right choices to vote, to communicate this. And so I hate feeling helpless, I guess is what I'm saying. I couldn't believe, and I'm kind of with you, Garcelle, I couldn't believe that yesterday I was sitting there with on bated breath, just so full of anxiety, because we were waiting to see if justice would actually be served.
Right?
We all
We're let
watched
down
a
so many
cold,
times.
We all watched a cold-blooded murder take place right in front of us, only because a witness managed to catch it on camera, by the way. Only
right.
because of that.
A
And because of
17-year-old
that,
witness.
We still sat there wondering if this was going to turn out the right way, because so many times, and so many times either documented, undocumented, recorded, not witnessed, justice was not served. And that already felt so wrong in so many ways. And I'm still, I'll have to be honest with you, I'm troubled with the fact that Derek Chauvin could still get out with less of that 70 years spent serving time. I do think, it's crazy that it's not.
Well, we have to wait to see what the sentence is.
Right, of course. But I'm just sitting on that doesn't make me go and leap for joy. It just still, there's so many things, but still, yes, it's a step in the right direction. But one thing I still am left with is, what if this wasn't recorded? What if these witnesses don't record? And I've actually been in cases where I've seen arrests go down, and I've recorded. One time there was one in the Bay Area, and I recorded, and I was told very bluntly, with the cop putting the hand on my phone, stop recording. We're gonna take you in if you keep your phone out. And I stopped, because I don't know my rights. I really don't know, and I know that they vary by state. Right. And so I just am so obviously so thankful for every person who can document these, so we can talk about Ma'Khia and George Floyd, and Breonna is only from accounts of what happened within the neighbors. So all I'm saying is that from this, I hope the learning lesson also, besides police reform and besides learning how to vote so that your legislators are doing the right thing and serving justice, also is, what can we do as a community when we see our authorities are not handling not handling situations right? What are we allowed to do?
Yeah.
Because understand this, if the verdict had not, if it was the other way, quite possibly they were preparing for riots and looting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But now that there has been a conviction, there are certain parties, the GOP, they're not gonna riot and loot. What they're doing, and you see this right now, is that they're trying to change the voting laws. That's how they fight. So understand that. So we're trying to get things passed. There are a couple of voting rights issues that are on the books that we're trying to get that passed. This George Floyd policing, we're trying to get that passed. So if you are a true ally, just listen to what we're saying and understand the issues and get the information. And because Black people don't celebrate because somebody got to go to jail. We're not doing that. We're actually crying because we just didn't believe it would happen. And finally, it looks like it's happening. We've been going through this since Emmett Till, Rodney King, all of these people. So this is the reason why it's not a celebration for us. Understand that. This is a win for the Floyd family, and we send our sincere condolences, and we're gonna keep trying to, as we can, to give as much information that we can so that you can make an informed decision on what is happening in this country.
Yeah.
But it is working, and you should feel good if you voted. You should feel good because it's working.
Absolutely. It's
I feel
working.
so
Finally,
many
we see
people-
accountability.
Yeah, and I think some
Exactly.
people, even with the accountability, they're like, wait, is that really accountability? Because what about all the other police officers that were standing around? Where's that accountability? Like, there's
Well,
still
they
so
still-
many holes
three
in this
officers
story,
are
in the
going to-
justice.
The other
gonna go
three
to trial.
officers are going to go to trial in August. So this is the
Okay.
first, and this was the main one. So we'll just
So-
have to see. His sentencing is in 2 months as well.
Yeah.
Derek Chauvin. So we will see.
I think so many of us still just feel so frustrated that we even had to go through this trial like the way it has been. You know, like so many of us just watched, like Jeannie just said, cold-blooded murder. Like we actually watched it happen, and it's like, when you watched how this trial went down, it was disgusting. It really was. I mean, I'm so grateful, and I think that, you know, they truly deserve a thank you, the people that chose to stand up and speak and sit on the witness stand and speak up for George Floyd and who he was as a person and bring humanity to his story. I'm grateful for the people that documented. But there is still such a greater fight here that needs to happen. And justice would be if George Floyd was alive. That would be justice, and we're not there.
This
and I think
country-
that there's still such a
This
big fight
country
to go
has to
forward.
have police reform. There is something
Yeah.
happening
Yes.
when you have a 16-year-old girl, Ma'Khia Bryant, in Columbus,
Yeah.
Ohio, was shot
Shot four times in the chest.
by the police. I'm like, and people are trying to say, well, she had a knife and it's like, but that's why we're talking about reform, people. That's
Right.
why we're saying reform, because there is a way that you can do, you couldn't shoot her in the leg, then we need
You could
training.
disarm
This is
somebody.
what we're talking about.
Without killing them. You can absolutely disarm someone without killing them.
Absolutely.
I believe that's what they're supposed to be trained for. And we had this conversation, you know, when we talked about, you know, just the idea of civilians getting nervous and acting. Well, that's why police are supposed to be trained, you know, for years to be able to handle
They
situations like
are
this and
trained.
not act.
They are trained, but when it comes to a black person, they have different rules, and that's what we have to keep fighting and keep
That's
talking
right,
about.
yes.